Okay, well, here we are. Another year has passed. It is now 2026, and we are here on Hawaii for an extremely rare vacation from the Freelance Bros. Usually we just New Year starts and we just keep going. But
Yep.
this year we thought we would take a small vacation, and this is the perfect opportunity for us to, in this relaxed, beautiful environment, to reflect on everything that happened in 2025. And it was an extremely big year for both of us. We both hit some milestones and we had a lot of trials and tribulations that we overcame at the same time. And we thought this would be a great time to reflect on everything that happened and sort of talk about the lessons that we're going to carry forward into 2026 so that we can have an even better year than last year. And last year was a really great year for both of us. One thing that is unfortunate as a freelancer, a lot of people I'm sure will relate to this, is that years can just go by in the blink of an eye, and it can feel like a blur, especially towards the end of December. You're like, what the hell even happened last year? And I think it's important as freelancers that you actually, whether it's a couple hours towards the end of the year or a couple hours towards the beginning of the next year, to really just sit down and reflect. And, as freelancers, we have a tendency to just go as long and hard as we can. But, let's talk about why it's important to take the time to even remember what happened in the last year. And I know for me, 2025 is kind of a blur. I really can't recall everything that happened. And it wasn't until I actually started digging into my calendar that I started remembering everything that happened. So how do you feel about the importance of really just not only documenting what happened, but like going back and reflecting on what happened throughout the year?
To be honest, it was also a blur for me too. Like, just so many things happened. Sometimes I think I have short-term memory loss. So I have to look back at my calendar and my journaling app to figure out what even happened towards the beginning of 2025.
Yeah, I feel like as a freelancer, we live like 2 years in 1 year because
Yeah.
of just how many clients we go through, how many new people we're constantly meeting,
Yeah.
how many inquiries are coming in. And so, yeah, 1 year of freelancing is like 3 years of being a 9 to 5 person, because there's just so many things that you have to overcome, so many new skills you have to develop on a short-term basis. And if you're freelancing right, you're constantly stretching yourself to your absolute limits when it comes to how you market yourself, what clients you take on, you know, all of those things, and how you show up on client meetings and how you put yourself out there. So I know 2025 was one of my biggest freelancing years ever, and I think a huge part of that was my strategic partnerships. And that's something we talk about a lot in our school community, is the importance of having strategic partnerships with not only potential clients, but competitors. And a lot of my increase in work this year was due directly to me having really strong relationships with other competitors. And, I'm a videographer, so I was able to connect with a few other videographers in my city, and it's become an insanely mutually beneficial relationship where, we have similar gear, we have similar taste, we have similar work ethic. And when I have a project that I can't execute solo and I need more hands on deck, I hire Chris, who's my go-to guy. And the other time that I hire him is when I get double booked. And so if I have someone trying to hire me on a specific date and I'm already booked on that date, I send them directly to Chris, and I scratch his back, he scratches my back
Yeah.
whenever he's also a successful videographer. So when he gets double booked, he's sending those leads directly to me. So, we talk about this a lot, but it's important. It's important for freelancers to not limit who they connect with. A lot of freelancers can feel like, oh, this is my territory and he's a competitor, so I don't want to, connect with him. I got to crush him. You know, I think people who do that are really limiting themselves, because successful freelancers a lot of times have more work than they can execute themselves. And if you connect with the right freelancers, they're going to be able to send you work if you can send them work as well. And that has been a major game changer for me. I had a lot of very large opportunities come through only because I was able to keep very strong relationships with other videographers. So for the other freelancers out there, I would highly encourage you to not limit your networking activities to potential clients and, you know, other businesses that might hire you. I think it's important that you have a network of people that do what you do, because they can lean on you and you can lean on them as well.
Absolutely. And that's actually going to be one of my goals heading into 2026 is how can I put together some strategic partnerships just like Tyler. So I'm adding that. I'm learning from your lesson and I'm taking it into 2026. So one of the lessons I have learned, which is kind of similar, almost adjacent, is just showing up and bringing your A game without knowing how it's all going to unfold. For me, I had a few very high profile client projects, and I just remember showing up, just bringing my A game to each meeting, to each project, just leaving it on the field. I like to call it, is just bringing your best and not knowing, hey, is this project going to end short? Is it going to continue on for a long period of time? I don't know, but it doesn't really matter because that's out of my control. All I can do is control my actions. And by doing that, I'm controlling that by bringing my A game. And I was pretty shocked. A lot of doors opened up, a lot of new leads came through, and a lot of new opportunities came through just because I showed up for certain opportunities. So that's something I'm going to continue on in 2026 is just doing what I can to control my actions and then just kind of, leaving the rest up to how it all unfolds.
And I think something you left out is that some of these projects started out small. They were high profile clients, but they started out small from a revenue perspective.
Yes.
But you felt like the caliber of the client was so high that you were going to give it 100% of your effort, even though they weren't paying your, standard rate at that point.
Yes, exactly. And I know we filmed a training in our school community, a little subtle plug there where we go into a lot more detail and depth on that. But looking and identifying the opportunity, okay, fine, they're small right now, but what could that look like if I got a lead to a different project, or they increased the scope, or maybe I could keep them on my roster for a full year or 2 years. So the way I looked at client relationships this year was probably the most strategic in how I viewed client relationships in the past. Like in the past, it'd be like, oh, the money, what's the highest profit here? What's the best portfolio piece I can add? But this year was all about strategic thinking, playing chess almost, like, hey, if I take this project on, what doors does that open for me later on?
Yeah, I think that's something all freelancers should be thinking about as we progress into 2026, because the way that everything is developing with the economy and with AI tools, like the people that are able to work smarter are going to be the people that win. It's not going to be just about hustle and grind. I think the hustle and grinders are great, but guess what? The people that can hustle and grind with tactical thinking behind it, strategic thinking, those guys are going to be able to win every single time. I don't care how hard you work. With the tools at our disposal and the information at our disposal, it's all about who can be the most strategic in their freelancing efforts. And that could run the gamut from the way that you market yourself, the niches that you go after, the clients that you decide to take on or not take on. You really have to become a strategic thinker when it comes to long-term freelancing and thinking 3 steps ahead. Thinking about, this door is opening. There's an opportunity A, opportunity B, opportunity C. Which one of those opportunities is going to unlock the most value long term, not just the most value from a short term perspective. So it's not just about the project price. So it's not just about the clients that are willing to pay you the most right now. It's also about thinking about, if I blow this client away, how many people do they know that they would be willing to refer that work to me? So, a $500 client here could end up being a $10,000 client, just based on referrals if they're in the right niche and if they know the right people.
Exactly. And then along those lines, I decided, you know what, instead of fighting maybe some slow seasons here and there, let me actually lean into those because I'm just going to be more effective if I lean into those. So during a few slow seasons, I decided, hey, let me revamp my case studies. Let me work on, my personal brand. Let me maybe take a second and actually be grateful and enjoy life and be a little bit more present instead of push, push, push all the time. And I found that leaning into those slow seasons actually helped me recharge and gain more energy so that I could push even harder during the busy seasons. And so it just felt better in 2025, just ebbing and flowing a little bit more and not pushing it and fighting it, because I know your work style, there is just a natural ebb and flow with the different projects that you take on versus mine, retainer based. There's less ebb and flow there, and so I've always been kind of cautious, and so it felt really good this year to lean more into the natural ebb and flow of freelancing and just consulting in general.
Yeah, I recently saw a clip from the Huberman podcast, and he had this guest that was talking about high performers, and he was basically saying the people that are high performers, they are 100% on or 100% off.
Oh.
That's really the game that you have to play. Is when you're working at 100% efficiency, and when you're not working, you are 100% off. You're not half relaxing, half working. It's all about getting the ratio to on or off, 100% or zero. So I think that's something I'm going to be very intentional about this year is when I'm not working, I'm fully relaxing, because the harder you can relax, the harder you can work when you're actually working. And I think that's something a lot of us struggle with as freelancers is turning off, actually trying to relax and recuperate. And it's so important for your brain to actually not have to be running those processes in the background when you're trying to rest and recover. And so I think we should all think about how can I, when I'm relaxing, how can I 100% not be thinking about work? And when I'm working, how can I make sure that I'm not distracted at all and I'm 100% working on work?
Yeah, I think you had a coach who had said if you take one day off a week, you're going to increase your productivity by, 40% or something like that, versus if you're working 7 days a week, slowly but surely your effectiveness and your productivity is going to take a dip. So it's actually critical, mission critical, to find a way to take a day off. And I know I'm guilty of this. It's very hard for me to relax and to unwind. I'm working on it.
You need to be a better relaxer.
I'm working on it. I would say it's I perform at probably 80% throughout the week, but I don't know. I like finishing up a few things on Saturday or Sunday, but I'm gonna try to go by that standard and figure out a way to at least get closer to that ratio.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me when we're talking about how relaxation actually increases productivity. I read this book a few years ago, and it was about how meditation. A lot of people think of meditation like it's this, fluffy thing that, is very spiritual. But I actually read this book that was about how meditation directly increases your productivity. And I think that's something when I'm going into 2026 is there's habits that I want to reincorporate into my life. The last 3 years, I sort of bared the fruit of all the amazing habits that I built when I was starting freelancing. But then all those habits led to amazing results and then led to constant work, constant inbound leads.
Yeah,
and then the good habits fell off. And so a lot of the habits that I built up when I was trying to make it as a freelancer have just kind of fallen off. And meditation is one that I used to do. I even had one of those meditation boards where you put it under your thighs, and so that you're sitting up, you're sitting but you're vertical, so you can really focus on your meditation. But yeah, I read this book. I'll try to remember the name of it, but I'm going to reread that book and really try to find time every single day, morning, maybe before I start my first task, and then in the evening before I go to bed to just do maybe even somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes of meditation, because I remember that book having a major impact on my ability to mentally be okay with meditating just because of the insane benefits to productivity and focus?
Which I meditate for about 10 minutes every day. And that habit right there has changed my life. It's like the most consistent, reliable, and dependable activity you can incorporate into your day-to-day schedule. Like for me, it doesn't matter if I'm feeling maybe especially overwhelmed on certain days. I meditate for 10 minutes and it brings me back to my calm, cool, collected self. Or maybe some days I'm like, I'm feeling pretty good, but I'm just going to meditate anyways. And again, it just brings me back so I can be really productive. So I'm going to hold you to it to get that meditation.
Well, it also helps your relaxation time, right? It's not only helping your focus when you're working, but it's helping you be more present when you're relaxing with family and friends, right? So you
Definitely.
can actually get more benefit out of your time not working if you're a meditator, because you're way more in the moment and less thinking about a bunch of million things in your head.
Yeah, which I know we had a great conversation with one of our school members kind of about this dichotomy between entrepreneurship, which even though we're freelancers, I think of us as entrepreneurs, right? You're a business owner at the end of the day, business owner of one. So there's this element of push, hustle, control, all of that. But then there's also this element of giving up control and just kind of letting go and just being okay that there is a portion of your work that is out of your control. And so finding peace with that combination and just leaning into that as much as possible. So I think that would just bring us all a little bit more peace if we accept the fact that, hey, I'm going to do my part, but then there's also an element where I can't control, and I'm not even going to pretend like I can control that, and I'm just going to keep going on about my day.
Okay, and I think that is a good transition into the idea of stress management. And as freelancers, stress is just always there. It seems like, you're always worrying about client deadlines, you're worried about running out of work, having too much work. There's always seems like a point of stress in your life. And so I think for both of us, we really want to find ways, and I think everyone should be thinking about, how can I reduce the amount of stress that is in my life, regardless of how busy you are or not busy you are. So what do you think about that? What do you think about stress management going into 2026?
Yeah, managing your stress is mission critical. It's a non-negotiable, because stress is always going to be there. During your highest highs and your lowest lows, you're always going to have to deal with stress. And so if it's not going anywhere, your only option is to manage it in a pretty healthy way. So I take stress management incredibly seriously. I, run, meditate, read, do the sauna very frequently, because I just know it's not going anywhere. So I might as well learn to live with it. And sometimes stress can be healthy. Let's be honest. Like if you are feeling stress in a certain way, maybe that's an indicator. Hey, I actually need to fill up my pipeline with more leads, or hey, maybe I need to outsource something or build systems. Like stress is a really good indicator of a bigger problem. But if it's chronic stress and just general anxiety and all of that, finding a healthy way to deal with that is really your only option. And this isn't just for freelancers, this is just for high performers in general. So even if you're not full-time freelance yet, or maybe you just want to stay part-time freelance, just having stress management as a habit is going to be so important.
Okay, but when you say stress management, what does that actually mean? You can't just say, I'm managing my stress now, I have less stress.
Fair question. It means reducing it in a really healthy, productive way. Like especially if you're feeling anxiety or your heart starts racing, figuring out how to calm your nervous system down. So meditating really helps calm things down. And especially if you're feeling maybe overwhelmed or particularly stressed, going on a run, like getting rid of that energy. I mean, stress is cortisol. So if you feel kind of this extra cortisol in your body, figuring out ways to release it and reduce it so that you can think clearly and just be more effective and less stressed. I know a couple weeks ago, I decided, it's actually probably more productive for me to just close up the computer and go for a 30-minute run just to kind of clear my head, because I'm not going to be able to do good work if I'm stressed or overwhelmed. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to make that judgment call and I'm just going to shut down the computer. Went for a 30-minute run, came back, showered, and I felt so much better just getting that cortisol and getting that stress out of my body, and I could think with a clear head. And that's one of the things I love about freelancing is there's that flexibility. So if you are feeling really stressed like I was, you can kind of play Tetris with your deliverables and with the things that you owe clients, just to take care of yourself. So I know for me, running, huge for stress management. Also the sauna is fantastic, but what's your preferred method of stress management?
I think for me, what reduces stress the most is finding ways to not do stuff that I don't like. And I think a big innovation this year was I hired an editor. I didn't hire one, but I found one that I can work with on a contract basis. And that has been a game changer for me personally because, a huge portion of my stress was having to slog through projects that I didn't personally find interesting. I took them on for, just to have another project, to keep myself busy. But there's no reason that I have to execute the entire project myself. And so that's something I've been really trying to work on, is removing the areas of my life that cause stress. And one of those major areas in 2025 was doing boring projects. And so, if I can do the high value portion of it, which is actually acquire the project and work with the client and make the client feel like, I've got this, they can trust me to do a great job. I film the project and then hand it off to a talented editor, and they can handle most of the editing, maybe get it 80% of the way there, and then I'll take it home the last 20%. And that has been an absolute game changer for me. So just removing things off my plate that I'm not interested in, that I'm not necessarily good at, or things that I can't even necessarily put my spin on, like if it's a pretty generic deliverable, then might as well have someone else do that, because me doing it myself isn't going to provide any extra value to the client, really, if it's a talking head video with music, right? So that has been a game changer for me, is finding someone that can help offload some of these more mundane projects. Yeah, and then going back to like being all the way on leisure time or being all the way on work time, I think I'm pretty good at not thinking about work when I'm doing things like playing video games, because my brain just 100% focuses on the video game. So I think that's actually a pretty healthy habit, as long as which is another habit I have to fix, is going to bed a little bit too late because I get sucked into the video games. So that's another habit I'm going to try to fix, really get that sleep schedule dialed in, because I think at this point it's just so clear how much of an advantage it gives you if you have a not only having high quality sleep, but a sleep schedule where you're getting up and executing your routine. That is just something that is going to compound day after day, and it's something that I've been struggling with for basically my whole adult life. But I think that this is the year I could finally get a sleep schedule dialed in.
I'm going to hold you to it. So, New Year's resolution.
Another lesson that I learned this year was behind the scenes content when it comes to warming up leads that are falling into your pipeline. I think it's very important for freelancers to have some element of behind the scenes content for your clients to check out, because that could really be the difference maker between them deciding to reach out or not to reach out. Because if you have some great behind the scenes content that shows your clients, who you are, that you're a friendly person, that you're a professional. And that's something that happened on one of the projects that I was lucky enough to go on this year, was a fairly large video project with one of my longtime buddies. He brought me on to a kind of a whale project that he secured, and it was so large that they actually had a behind the scenes photographer slash videographer who was there literally just capturing every single day we were filming. He was there capturing content of me and my buddy kind of executing the campaign, doing our cinematography. And so now I have this huge collection of amazing behind the scenes
Yeah.
content. And so I immediately, once I actually got that content, I put it on my website, on my About Me page and the Contact Me page. And so every time someone clicks on a different page on my website, there I am, or, with the equipment, or working with, you can see me kind of crafting light and working the camera. And I think it's just an amazing thing that brings clients into your world. So that's going to be something I continue to work on and I think having behind the scenes video is even better than behind the scenes photos,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's doubly complicated to create. But I think there's been so many moments where I'm like, wow, why didn't I just set up a little iPhone tripod while I was doing this shoot? Like maybe I was at a studio or something. I could have just set up a little iPhone tripod and let it roll throughout the whole shoot. And there's your behind the scenes content right there.
Yeah.
And you don't even need to hire someone to do that. But so I think going into 2026 is I'm going to really try to remember to always capture behind the scenes content, because if I have just one clip from every shoot that I do, I mean, that's a cool video in itself, just a little montage I can put together at the end of the year of all the projects that I executed.
Yeah.
Even on my iPhone, I think that'd be a really cool thing for clients to see. So behind the scenes content is going to be something I focus on this year. What about your personal brand? How are you going to improve that?
Yeah, so because I know content that I've created with my YouTube channel and all of that has directly led to high paying, premium, high value clients, I'm going to continue with that. And so finding time to prioritize it, working and outsourcing the video content to an editor potentially, but keeping that as a priority, just so I avoid the classic feast and famine cycle that so many freelancers fall into. It's so easy to get really busy and really bogged down with client work, and then you completely forget about your own marketing in your own personal brand, but finding ways just to be consistent, because I think consistency is the name of the game with that. So that's going to be on my priority list heading into 2026.
And then, as I was looking at my calendar and kind of reliving all the memories of all the projects that I was able to execute last year, something I really want to continue doing is, when I have time and when the opportunity presents itself, working on those side projects. And I think side projects are something that everyone should be doing, whether you are a full-time freelancer or a part-time freelancer. I think side projects are a great venue for people to have a way of experimenting, of trying out new things in a very non-risky way. Because I think, we all started out freelancing and that was sort of the side project. And then the side project became the main project. And now you can't really experiment as much. You can't take as many risks as you would like. So I think always having some sort of side project that you can really go all out on when you have time to work on it is really healthy and helps remind you of why we're doing this in the first place, right? We're not freelancing to make money. We're freelancing because it allows us the freedom to work on things that we enjoy. It gives us more time freedom. And so, one of my side projects is a really fun collaboration between me and one of my good buddies. He's a DJ. And so the project is called Nomad Sets. And we basically, whenever we have an opportunity to, whether it's a video project or whatnot, in like an interesting location, we'll find the most remote, beautiful location that we can, and we'll go film a DJ set out in nature. And those are constantly like the highlights of my year, shooting those projects, just being out in the middle of nowhere and working on the cinematography with good music. So yeah, I think I'm going to continue with the side projects in between the client projects, and just let those kind of refuel my creative cup when it's running low.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And I mean, Freelance Pros is one of our side projects, and that has been just so fulfilling in really interesting and unique ways, just helping freelancers have more success. I know we love each and every one of our members in our school community, and so that's been so fulfilling, is just seeing the progress that everybody's making and the confidence that they're building. It's been really, really cool.
Yeah, that's definitely been a very interesting side project to see grow. And I think it's made us better speakers. I think it's made us more confident. And just to see them go from semi-confident freelancers to super high confident freelancers who are working with great clients and charging high rates has just been incredible.
Yeah, there's obviously it's been so fulfilling to see everybody grow, but one person in particular, it's been especially rewarding, and they've had just a 180-degree shift from when they started working with us to where they are now. And it's like I hardly recognize the person and what they're saying. It's just been so cool to see their growth, and I'm excited even for the next couple years just to watch and cheer them on. Another big lesson I've learned, which might seem really obvious, but this idea that freelancing doesn't work if you don't hustle. And I know that's probably really obvious. You're like, no duh. But I fell into the trap of complacency during this year, and not the whole year, but just, a few months out of the year, where I had finished up a really intense, high profile client project. It went really well, but I was super burnt out afterwards, and I decided, let me just, take a little bit of time off. I'll do some traveling. I'll kind of kick it back into whatever 70% gear. And then I found myself just continuing on maybe a few more weeks longer than I probably should have. And so I definitely got caught in this trap of complacency, and took me a little while to get back out of things. And I think that could be due to a couple different factors. Of during that project, I pushed really hard, and I didn't really give myself a ton of time to rest and recharge. It was like a push, and then a little bit of a dip. But if I would have taken more time just to recharge throughout that project, it would have kind of gone more like this. So that was a big lesson, is even if you are almost a decade into the game, you can get complacent, and you just cannot get to that place. And so that's going to be something for this year. I'm going to continue to improve at least 1% and at least try to move the needle, so I'm not falling into the trap of complacency, and then as a result kind of falling back into that feast and famine cycle.
Yeah, and I think people that do monthly retainers like you are more at risk of this, because you get used to the client being there every month. You get used to that paycheck coming in every single month, versus someone like me who's on a contract basis where, you get a contract, you execute the contract, now you got to get a new client. So, but on your side of things, if you're used to having that income come in at month after month after month, and then that income goes away for whatever reason, whether the company dissolved or a new marketing person came in and changed things up, you have to be always ready to replace clients if necessary,
which can be tough because I'm very involved with all aspects of my clients. So I'm pretty much their go-to marketing person. And so my time is filled up, getting them results and putting together these case studies. And it can be hard to fit prospecting into my schedule. And so I think the only way that my business model works is that I allow myself a little bit more of that ebb and flow. Like we mentioned at the beginning, is like, hey, if I know this client is probably going to be wrapping up for whatever reason, even if it's out of my control, maybe just taking a beat and enjoying that ebb of freelancing so that I can land that next client. So, yeah.
And then always having irons in the fire from a funnel perspective.
Always
making sure that clients are finding you, falling into your funnel, reaching out to you. And if that isn't happening on a regular basis, then you need to change your funnel. I mean, it's even if you're fully booked and you have no room for new clients, you should have new clients falling into your funnel reaching out to you, because that shows you that your funnel is healthy, right? Even if you end up saying, no, I can't help you, I'm too busy, there's no room in my schedule, you need to be having those inquiries coming in, because that's basically a sign of the health of your business and
right.
the health of your marketing funnel.
Right. And then avoiding that feast and famine cycle. So heading into this next year, I would much prefer that the year goes more like this, or whatever, instead of like the feast and famine where we have more of a slower season and then a really, really busy season. So that's going to be one of my goals, is like, how can we keep the irons in the fire, keeping those clients really happy, getting them amazing results, but just having a little bit more of a consistent pace when it comes to new clients.
Yeah, I know. I actually had a complacency issue this year with one of my clients who, there's that honeymoon period when you get a new client, and sometimes it's a very, very powerful honeymoon period where they are telling you that they're going to need a lot of work this year, and book out your Mondays. Every single Monday for the next 3 months is actually something that happened to me. Someone told me that they wanted to basically create a podcast, and they were going to film a podcast episode once a week. That only lasted about 3 weeks, and then they moved to a different state. So, I thought I had hit the jackpot. You cannot take any clients for granted. I don't care how happy they are with your service or what they tell you. I think you need to always understand that clients will come and go. They will come and go. They have personal things happening in their life. They have business things happening in their business. And if you're able to work with a client for years on end, that is something you should be extremely grateful for. But those aren't super common, no matter how amazing your service is.
And that right there is one of the lessons I've learned over the years, is nothing is final until the contract is signed and the invoice is paid. You really can't bank on anything because there's just so much there's just so many variables out of your control. Like, I remember earlier this year, I had a client where they were in a rocky place when I was brought on, and I just didn't really know how long they would stick around, just because of some internal operation issues. But lo and behold, they're still thriving, and it's like 6-7 months later. So you just really don't know. There's no guarantees in life. There's no guarantees in freelancing. So you just gotta keep on keeping on, keep putting those. So you just really have no idea. You might not even know the full picture of the business. Is this self-funded? Is there an operations issue? I don't know, does an investor want his money back? Like, there's just so many variables out of your control. So nothing's guaranteed. So that's why you should always just keep hustling, just keep putting those irons on the fire.
And then the last thing, when we're thinking about 2026 that I really want to focus on is the 80-20 rule. And this was one of the most mind-blowing books I'd read when I was coming up in freelancing, and I need to reread it. It's on my reading list. But really thinking about what 20% of my daily activities are responsible for 80% of my results. And on the other side of the coin, what 80% of my actions are only moving the ball 20%, right? Because 80% of what you spend your time on is really not doing much for you, and 20% is actually doing things for you. So I'm going to really start rethinking about my activities and removing the activities that don't move the ball that much, and really going back to the 80-20 rule and really incorporating as much of that into my daily activities.
So what does that look like? Like, give us a specific example.
So an example of the 80-20 rule in freelancing would be working on your Upwork profile, right? Working on your Upwork profile. Getting your Upwork profile actually in a perfect place could potentially result in 80% of your inbound leads.
Yeah.
If you're able to use that website correctly, or putting together a new demo reel, or putting together a portfolio, re-engineering your portfolio. All of these are activities that actually make a huge difference in you getting hired as a freelancer versus, changing the color on your website or sending out cold emails. Very low leverage activities that don't result in a lot of results. I know I've always done my own taxes. That would be a very low value activity that doesn't increase my income. So things like that, finding ways of outsourcing the things that you should not be doing. And there's a lot of things that we should not be doing that we're doing. And so really, I'm going to really start trying to aggressively eliminate things that I should not be spending my valuable time doing.
And I know we talk about being a freelancer, a business of one, but that doesn't mean you can't outsource certain things depending on your skill sets and your interest and like how fast you want to grow your business. So like you can absolutely have vendors or contractors and offload some of this burden that makes the most sense. So just because you are the business owner doesn't mean you can get some support from other contractors.
Yeah, I mean, we're all used to wearing every single hat in our business, and that's actually not something to be proud of. I think, yeah, being well-rounded and being skilled at a lot of things is great, but it shouldn't be a point of pride that you're doing your own taxes. That just means that you're wasting a lot of time doing something that's not increasing your income. So that's something I need to work on, is detaching from some of those activities that I really don't need to be doing myself.
And like hiring an accountant, just going along with this example, that's their area of expertise. They're really, really good at their job, so they could find you different ways to save money here and there. So outsourcing skills that you should not be spending your time on, and then outsourcing them to experts. So people who actually have years of experience, they have certifications, that can just help you be way more efficient. For me, I hate video editing with a fiery passion. I know you've tried to teach me, and it's just not what I want to be doing. And so I have a couple different video editors that I work with, and it's worth the money like 10 times for me, because I do not want to be spending my time editing, and someone else can do it, and it frees up more time where I can focus my efforts on how to get more clients and service clients.
Well, the 20% of that activity would be actually making the content, filming the content, right?
True.
That's the valuable part, not the editing of it.
True. Very true. So it's like I do the valuable part and then outsource the rest.
So those are some of the lessons that we learned, some of the intentions that we have for this year. We're curious, what kind of freelancing lessons did you guys learn? I'm sure every single year there's a lot of lessons that we learn the hard way, some harder than others. But we'd be curious to know what your main lessons were and what you're going to do differently in 2026 to have the best year of freelancing of your life. So let us know in the comments, and we hope you guys enjoyed this Hawaiian podcast, and we'll see you in the next one. Happy freelancing.